Uantchern, walk us through very briefly on the Singapore Accountancy Commission, because I'm not sure that everyone actually knows what SAC is and what its missions are.
Well, thanks Cesar for inviting me to this interview. The journey for the accountancy sector in Singapore really began back in late 2008, where the Singapore government convened a committee to develop the accountancy sector, or CDAS for short. So in late 2008, with that committee that was formed, we embarked upon an 18-month study of the accountancy sector. And the result of that study was a report that was issued in April of 2010. So that was quite a long while ago. And we took our time. And in April of this year, we implemented the first of the 10 recommendations in the CDAS report. So on April the 1st of this year, we formed the Singapore Accountancy Commission, which is a statutory body under the Ministry of Finance. And if you read the CDAS report, that was recommendation number 10. So we are sort of working backwards. So we got 9 more recommendations to do. And really the mission of the Singapore Accountancy Commission, once given birth, is to implement the other 9 recommendations. If you look at the Commission's logo, which is a bit of like a hashtag sign or tic-tac-toe, somebody call it, there are 9 quadrants in that logo, which represents the 9 recommendations. So the number 9 is forefront in my mind, but I don't buy 4D. So
it is very interesting, and I would like to focus when you talk about the 9 missions. I imagine one would be developing the CFO as a profession in Singapore, and another would have to do with the chartered accountants, the new accountancy designation. And from the questions that I've been getting, I think these are the 2 things that people are interested in. Let me check first with the CFO development goal. What exactly does the SAC want to do in respect to the CFOs?
Well, with that, let me set the ground for what we call the accountancy sector. So going back to history again, the committee to develop the accountancy sector, if you look at that phrase, accountancy sector, it's pretty nebulous in the sense that what really is the accountancy sector? In our definition, the accountancy sector comprises those who work in the public accounting entities, or what we call the accounting firms.
The practitioners.
The practitioners. And then the other segment are what we call the professional accountants and business, which is really under the IFAC definition. And these are really the CFOs, the finance, the finance directors, the internal auditors, risk management, business valuation, tax, and there's a lot of them. In fact, to be honest with you, we have no idea how many professional accountants in business there are in Singapore. We can use membership in professional bodies as a proxy. Like we know ICPAS has about 28,000 members, ACC has about 10,000, CPA Australia has about 7,000, then you have ICAW, ICAA, but there are people who are not members of professional bodies who are qualified, but we have no idea where they are. But so the accountancy sector is pretty nebulous once again, and what we're trying to do is to segment them into areas where we can help. And the SAC is a promotional body. Even though we have a little bit of regulatory oversight, if you look at our act, by and large we are a promotional body, and our mantra when we go to market is really to collaborate. If you look at recommendation number 2 of the CDAS report, one of the specific recommendations is to set up a Singapore CFO Institute. And with that institute is really to promote, to celebrate, and to champion the role of the CFO. And whether it's going to be any certification programs, whether there's any membership of a CF Institute, that's something that we want to hear from the marketplace. If you look at our website on the CFO Institute, there are no membership requirements. So anybody is open to join the events and activities of the CFO Institute. And like I said, our mission for the CFO Institute is to celebrate, champion, promote the role of the CFO, not just in the working world, but really at schools. For example, a couple of weeks ago, I was at high school, the Dunman High School, where I spoke to the kids about, what does it take to be a CFO. So that's one of the many things that we do in order to celebrate the role of the CFO.
Okay. So what does it take to be a CFO from the point of view of the SAC and the CFO Institute? I asked this question, I did a roundtable a while back, and there was a suggestion that the CFO should be a CPA. The CFO should take an exam before he become a CFO, and there should be all sorts of requirements. Okay, but there was a big pushback from some of the CFOs on the panel saying, you don't ask the CEO, you don't ask the COO, you don't ask the CIO to take exams and to have requirements. Why would you need to have the CFO have all these requirements? Is that something that you are looking at in terms of qualifying who the CFO can be of any company?
Well, I mean, if you read Shakespeare, you will know that a rose by any other name will smell just as sweet. So a CFO, whether he or she is a CPA, CA, should still be a CFO.
Okay.
And that's why the CFO Institute, we created the ideal CFO framework.
Right.
If you look at the CFO Connect website of the CFO Institute, what we have is that we spoke to the industry, we have an advisory council, and we said, what does the ideal CFO look like? And so we put down, these are the ideal CFO characteristics, and what we do is that we encourage people to adopt that ideal CFO framework. We are not here to push certification or qualification or membership. If something is really good, people will flock to it like bees to honey, and you don't need to force people to be certified.
Okay. So the ideal CFO, was that based on CFOs? You asked them what the ideal CFO is, or
Yep.
And can you give us an idea as what is the ideal CFO? Maybe a lot of these people are actually ideal CFOs.
Well, I mean, I can't remember everything.
Okay. Do they need to be CPAs, for example?
No, we don't go down to that tactical level.
Okay.
But clearly, for example, leadership, being collaborative. These are some of the characteristics of what we call an ideal CFO. And our job at the CFO Institute is really to go out to the marketplace and then to promote this ideal CFO framework, so that it can be embedded in all the programs that's related to CFOs. Like for example, SMU is starting a Masters in CFO Leadership in this August. So it's a great program, and the CFO Institute has supported that program. We also support other CFO programs like the ICAW F10 program. So with that, what we hope is that they will then adopt the ideal CFO framework as part of their delivery mechanisms. And if the market is doing something, the CFO Institute will not duplicate, but instead we will collaborate and we will champion and we will celebrate.
Okay. Just to be clear, the ICAEW program and the SMU program, those are paid programs. Would there be like scholarships, grants, or things like perhaps the SAC can do for would-be CFOs and actual CFOs to be helped, or tax breaks? I don't know how these things go, training breaks and so on?
Well, there are tax breaks, the PIC, for example, there are tax breaks under the Ministry of Finance for people who want to go for training.
Okay. How much importance does CFOs in Asia give to be a co-pilot of the business as opposed to just focused on keeping the lights on? I guess this is the vision of the new CFO as more a business partner and so on. And I think I seem to detect a note of skepticism in this question, whether in fact people in Asia actually give a lot of importance to this as opposed to just doing the accountancy.
The CFO has been given many new names of late. Business partner, CEO who knows the numbers, chief risk officer, But to me, I would say the CFO is somebody who has the skills to do what it takes. And this is where the ideal CFO framework come to play. If you want to be a CFO, then you should have all these characteristics.
Yes.
And if you do, then you have what it takes to be a CFO. It doesn't really matter what you are branded as. You don't really have to be called CFO. Many companies don't have a CFO. Some call it chief commercial officers. Some call it COOs, CAOs.
Yeah, I asked the question because I did notice that when speaking to a lot of CFOs, there is, and speaking to some outsiders outside of Asia, right? And they were saying that the CFOs here in Asia actually are not of the caliber that they find in London or in New York, who are, I guess, these particular CFOs. But would you say that CFOs here are actually going towards that end of being higher value, or are they actually clinging on to just keeping the lights on person?
Well, I would, controversially, I would say a lot of the CFOs in the other part of the world don't have a lot of skills that I think they should have. A lot of the Asian values that we have in Asia, not as confrontational. Okay. I think that's a good value to have in Asia. When we go to the board, we do things differently, but it doesn't mean that we're any less effective. Okay. I'm an accountant by training, and many of my classmates now are CFOs, and they do very well at what they do. And I think they stand toe to toe with anybody in the world, be it India or the UK or the US. But I think the more important question is, what can we learn from each other? And none of us are perfect. Okay. What can we learn from the other side of the world, and what they can learn from us? And keeping that open mind that there always is something worthwhile learning. And that will make us a better CFO, rather than saying that, oh, they're not as good as us, or we are better than them. I mean, that's quite myopic, if I may say so. Thank you.